Wonderful. Good morning. Is extended to Bahamas. And of course, Melissa, she says we have some beautiful people in studio this morning. I'm just going to allow them to introduce themselves real quick. I'm going to start with the very beautiful young lady in the room right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Dion. Good morning, Melissa. My name is Kajana Roll. I'm from the Department of Inland Revenue.
And of course...
Good morning, I'm Andy Moore Sanders. I am also from the Department of Inland Revenue. I'd like to say good morning to you and good morning to the Bahamas.
Indeed. Now, of course, Department of Inland Revenue. I want to know, really, what is the Department of Inland Revenue?
Well, pretty much as the name says, Dion, we are I would say at this point in time, major tax collecting agency for the Bahamas. There are several taxes under that roof. Of course, everybody is familiar with value-added tax. We have the business license, which some persons don't see as a tax, so we call it a tax. And then we have real property tax and one or two others under that roof.
Yeah, some places that we don't like to hear about, but we have to pay them anyway.
Right.
Indeed. Now, of course, you mentioned real property tax. Really, what is real property tax?
Well, real property tax is tax on your property. Every property in the Bahamas should be registered, and it should be registered with the Department of Inland Revenue. Whether that property is vacant, whether it's commercial, whether you have houses on rent, every property should be registered with the Department of Inland Revenue.
Mm-hmm. And how do one go about registering the property?
Well, in order to register your property, usually when there's a property sale, perhaps there may be a lawyer or someone involved. The lawyers know that they should have a declaration form along with a copy of the conveyance, proof of citizenship, because that would depend on whether your property is taxed or not and how much your property is taxed. So those are just some of the things that you will need, the basic things that you will need. Of course, now, if you are registering your commercial property, as say you have a business, as of 2015, most businesses now have a TIN number, and we would want that TIN number as well because that follows you wherever you go. And if you're on the Family Islands and you're registering a piece of property for the Family Islands, then we also ask for an appraisal.
Indeed. Now, of course, it's the end of the year, which means it's almost the time to start paying, or basically real property tax.
Yes, actually, persons only have until December 31st, 2017 to pay the 2017 tax before a penalty is added, because come January 1st, 2018, 5% will be added to your unpaid bills. That's for 2017. But we are here to let persons know that the 2018 bills are already out. We give persons a little more than a year to pay the 2018 bill. But just want to say again, the 2017 bills are due for payment. If you haven't paid already, your 2017 bill should be paid by December 31st, 2017, before a penalty is added. And
that penalty is 5%.
Yes.
Indeed. Now, of course, you mentioned that the bills are ready for collection, are owed and ready for collection?
Yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I noticed that you guys had a release that you guys put out for the post office as well. Those persons who get their bills via email, through the regular mail.
Yes, we have made sure that each post office was distributed their specific mails, and they went directly to those post offices, whereas the individuals can have them picked up, open them, and be ready for payment at the Real Property Tax Department or online.
You mentioned online, so you're online as well?
Yes, we have been online now for about a year or more. We've been online for this new platform, I should say, for the year. We've been online longer than that. But for persons out there who have not gone on to propertytax.gov.bs, that is www.propertytax.gov.bs. They can go and register their property. Once your property has been registered, you can pay online, and actually you can see if you haven't received your bills through the post office, as Mr. Sanders has said, because they're already there. Persons can go online. If they have been online before, just enter your username and password, or if they're going online for the first time, they'll need to go to new user registration and register their property.
Now, I want to know, someone listening right now, real property tax. I own a property. I even own a residence, but I don't know if I am supposed to be paying real property tax. How does one really know?
Well, one of the ways you can do is come and visit our office or call the office and ask, inform us that, why you're calling in. I want to know whether or not I have a property. I want to know if it's registered and do I owe any real property tax. One of the requirements are that you have an assessment number. The assessment number is what you call the tax number, and once you have that particular assessment number, one of the officers could go to the system, put in the number, and be able to tell you exactly what is outstanding on that particular property. You may find that the name may change, but the property location doesn't, so therefore the taxes will be against the property, even if it's changed hand from me to yourself, and it didn't come into the office and we are not informed. You'll know that the property owes taxes, and therefore you need to come in and see if you can have it settled.
Now, I'm a Bahamian citizen, right? I have some vacant property, say in San Salvador, in Crooked Island, maybe in Long Island. But I live here in the capital, and there's nothing on those properties. Do I have to pay property tax on all of those islands that I have own property?
No, well, not necessarily pay, but you should also have those properties registered with the Department of Inland Revenue. Bahamian owning land and improved property in the family island do not pay any taxes.
We don't pay any taxes or on vacant land?
Our improved property.
Not for the family island.
Not for the family island.
Mentioned.
Okay, it sounds pretty good. Now, of course, what about those here in the capital? I might have property in one area, but I live in another area. Do I have to pay property tax on both areas?
Well, it all depends, Dion. If you live in a home that's, so we call that one owner occupied, and as you know, there is a $250,000 exemption. So if your home is valued $250,000, you will not, and you live in that home, you will not pay taxes on that home. However, if your house is valued $251,000, $250,000 is exempt, and you will pay taxes on that $1,000 or the balance. Okay, so that's one thing we want to mention. Now, you mentioned you may have more than one home. If you live in one and you rent one, as a Bahamian, that second home is considered residential, and you will pay taxes on that home. Regardless as the value. You only get the exemption on the house that you live in, which we call owner-occupied. Now, if you just have another piece of property in the Bahamas, or in New Providence, as you had mentioned, if that is vacant land, as a Bahamian, you will not pay taxes on that. However, if you are a non-Bahamian, you would pay taxes on vacant land.
Now, what if I have a piece of property, but say I started to build, have not completed building. The property is still vacant, but the structure is like up to bell cost. Do I still have to pay taxes on that property as well?
Well, it all depends on what that portion is worth. If it's under $50,000, but did you say it's up to bell cost? So I'm thinking it's not under $50,000. So we have a code that we call under construction.
That's correct.
And depending on the value of that will depending on, whether
you
or not you would pay taxes or not.
But of course, we have lots of seniors in our society. Is there any discount to seniors who have property valued more than $250,000?
Yes. Now, let me explain. There are two types of discounts. For anyone who pays taxes on or before March 31st, 2018, that is, the bill is paid in full. In essence, they're paying the 2018 tax, what we consider the little early bird special. Then those persons will get a 10% discount on the 2018 tax. So there's that discount available to everyone once the bill is paid in full on or before March 31st. Now, the senior citizens, of course, we have something special for them. Now, the senior citizens must be a Bahamian, first of all. And then they are, if they're entitled to the national insurance benefit or have attained 65 years of age, and they own and live in the property, it's owner-occupied, as I mentioned, then that person can get a 50% discount up to the first million of their assessed values, of the assessed value.
My goodness, you guys offering some real tax breaks.
Yes, that is one that we want the senior citizen to be aware of. So they do get the 50% discount, but they must be a Bahamian citizen, 65 years of age, and they must be owner occupied property, and they would get a 50% discount on up to the first million, because we do have some seniors out there who are living in some very extravagant homes. So we want to stress that only on that first million do you get the 50% discount. The rest is taxed as normal.
Now, what if a senior citizen out there listening right now, they have their home, but they have rental properties, so that discount does not apply to their rental properties?
On the rental properties, the only thing that they will get at this point in time, if they pay the bill for the rental properties before March 31st, then they will still get the 10% discount on the 2018 tax. But for the home that they live in, they will get the 50% discount.
Let's backtrack a bit. We mentioned that the early payment, oh man, if they pay the 2018 bill before March 31st, they get a 10% discount.
10% discount on the 2018 tax. And that's why we're stressing, because some persons may have what we call arrears. They may have forgotten or whatever, or the hustle and bustle of Christmas didn't pay the 2017 tax. And then it's January, and they'd be like, oh my goodness, I haven't paid my 2017 tax. Well, the 2017 tax is due in full, plus a little surcharge that we bless them with on January 1st, 2018. However, the 2018 tax, they can still save 10% on that.
Indeed. So if you haven't paid your 2017 real property tax by now, you have until December 31st to pay without penalty.
Without penalty.
Come January 1st, come 2018, 12:01 a.m.
12:01 a.m. 5% is automatically added. We don't have to do anything. It is just automatically added.
But guess what? Have no fear. If you pay your 2018 real property tax before March 31st, hey, you get 10% off.
10%
So you save
discount, yes.
So Bahamas out there, hey, no need to worry. Get those payments in to the Department of Inland Revenue like right now.
Yes.
Where is the Department of Inland Revenue located?
We're located on Carmichael Road. If you are familiar, if you're heading west on Carmichael Road past Faith Avenue and familiar with the plaza that has, we're in the same plaza with Scotiabank and Burger King. We're at the back of that plaza.
Indeed. So just in front of road traffic.
We actually share a building with road traffic. And then, of course, yes, if you're going to have your cars inspected, you can drive around the back. But we are on the same premises.
Well, I'm understanding now that, well, maybe it needs to be explained to me as well. One of the questions I had was, if you purchase a house that's already on the property, and you live in half, you rent the other half, so it's a one side is a rental, you inherit tax. Am I correct? From the previous owners?
If the taxes were not settled when you purchase, yes. The taxes then become yours because you are now the owner of the property, and the taxes is associated with the property, and because you're the owner, you're now the owner of the taxes.
What if the property is valued under $250,000?
If it's owner occupied, now it wasn't always $250,000 because sometimes you find people say, the taxes, I know we exempted $250,000, but the exemption wasn't always $250,000. So as of 2004, it became $250,000. Prior to that, it was only $100,000. And some people may have accrued taxes up to that point and did not pay it, and therefore it just passed over as the $250,000 became associated with the real property tax exemption. So you may still have the taxes there that is due. And therefore, you may also encounter where you inherit the taxes when you got the home or the property.
So let me ask a question. If someone has property who hasn't been paying their real property taxes over years and years, the interest on those properties, do they accumulate year by year?
Yes, sir. They keep adding, and unfortunately, in some cases, you may find that the interest that you call, we in office refer to it as a surcharge, you would find that in some cases is higher than the actual tax. Because see, the tax value doesn't change. If your tax was $900 in 1994, it remains $900. But that interest is adding, that 5% is adding every year. And so in a number of cases, you would find that the surcharge could be higher than the actual tax over time. But I just want to go back to the example that Melissa brought. It sounded like she was referring to what we would call a multi-purpose, or like a duplex or a triplex, that type of structure. If you live in half and you rent half, now what Mr. Sanders had said was that you need to ensure that property owners, is before you purchase, before you sign on the dotted line, you would want to make sure that the taxes are paid for that property. Otherwise, as Mr. Sanders has said, you inherit those taxes, and no one wants to. People want to inherit things, but not taxes. But the other thing I want to point out to you is that we get people have the misinterpretation. I would say that they would say the whole duplex is valued under 250,000. However, if the portion that you live in is owner occupied, remember you get the 250,000 on that owner occupied portion. So the part that you live in may be valued. Let's say the whole duplex, using that example that Melissa gave. The whole duplex may be valued 250,000, but the part that you live in won't be, be under 250,000. So you would get the owner-occupied exemption for that. The other portion, the rented portion, is considered residential, and you pay tax on that residential portion. So even though you're owner-occupied, let's say it's your portion is worth 150,000, and the residential part, or the part that's rented, is 100,000. So together that's your 250,000. So you would get the owner-occupied exemption on your 150,000, and the 100,000 that's rented, you would be paying taxes on that.
Now, we Bahamians, we like to try to sneak through any loophole possible. We might say, okay, I have a home, I have an efficiency on it, but my son or my daughter is in that efficiency.
The thing is, you can only live in one home at a time. Whether the sibling or your child or a relative, like you say, we like to say everybody's family when it comes to thinking that we can get a tax break or something. Whether that person pays rent or not, as long as there's that separation as the owner-occupied portion and that other part, whether you want to give, some people say, my children are off age now, I want to give them a little privacy. Well, that little privacy is taxable as far as the Department of Inland Revenue is concerned.
Okay, so we're looking at being taxed on anything over 250?
You're taxed on anything over 250, but with the example that we just used, that Dion just gave, there's a separation between the owner-occupied dwelling and whether you call it an efficiency, whether it's another unit. That other unit or that efficiency, whatever it is taxable because it is not a part of the owner-occupied home.
Okay.
So that's automatically taxed. There's no discount on that part, Melissa.
Well, unless you pay by March 31st, 2018.
Yes.
And then you get the 10% discount, but that part is taxable.
So, Melissa, now I know what to do when my kids get off age. I'm not going to part off the house. I'm going to leave all the structure in one. Make sure it's 250,000.
Under my roof, all of them.
Well, what you could do, seriously, if you want, let's say it is a duplex and you want to give the other part to your child or someone, you can do a deed of gift and change it in their name, and then it becomes their own occupied home. But if you still want to own it, and if you still own it and it's a part of, let's say, a duplex or something, then of course that part would be taxable.
Okay, so taxation would kick in from the minute you purchase that property.
What type of property is it?
It's an apartment, owner-occupied plus an apartment.
Yeah, so then, once you purchase that, the owner-occupied exemption, of course, 250,000, the other portion is taxable.
So, of course, for persons wanting more information, how can they reach you guys over the Department of Inland Revenue?
Well, we have an email address, which is property tax inquiries with an E at bahamas.gov.bs. Like Mr. Sanders said, they can call the department. The main line is 461-8050.
Okay, now I understand that she's saying that the taxation is on the property itself. But do you guys ever make attempts to go after the last owner of the property if they purchase something else to get your money instead of taxing the new people?
Once you sign the deed, Melissa, that balance
deposit,
becomes
right?
yours.
Oh wow.
So you need to, once before you purchase a property, make sure all of these matters are cleared up
And a lot
before.
of people don't know that.
Indeed.
A lot of people just sign and don't realize, I guess, everything. But I guess they just leave it up to their lawyers, you know, to I guess say, well, okay, is this taken care of? But some of us don't know.
Hey, there's ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Oh yeah, we still gotta pay hay.
Well,
Indeed.
what I would like to note on that is that we would advise all persons who are going into the purchasing of property, one of the things to make sure is make sure your professional agent, whether it's the lawyer or the banker, be able to give you some confidence that your property tax or the property tax on that particular property is registered, one, and two, there's no outstanding taxes.
Ms. Roll, I'm going to start with you. I need you to give closing remarks for the entire Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Well, we just want to say that the 2018 bills are out there. We know persons are right now in the midst of their Christmas shopping and everything, but don't forget your real property tax. We are online, www.propertytax.gov.bs, and take advantage of the discounts. And Dion, you touched on something that's so important. You said ignorance, in essence, you said, is no excuse. And I want to let persons know that the notice of assessment has gone out, and therefore, by law, everyone is deemed to be served, which means that whether you receive on a bill or not, you are responsible for the taxes.
Indeed. Mr. Sanders?
Yes, I would like to make note to the fact that while we are here, we have a lot of individuals that doesn't have a personal PO box or an email. So I would advise them to sometime during the course of the year make a visit at the Real Property Tax Department, Department of Inland Revenue, and find out exactly what your position are in terms of your real property taxes. It's very important because sometimes when you come to the department, you want quick service, and sometimes it takes longer than you expect, and sometimes it irritates the public. But I'm advising them to come down, make an inquiry, and be always there to help the general public and educate them.
Indeed, of course. Mr. Sanders, anyone you want to say good morning to besides Merry Christmas to the entire Commonwealth of the Bahamas?
Well, I'd like to say good morning to my wife, Carla Ann Sanders, at the Attorney General Office. I'd like to say good morning to the whole Department of Inland Revenue, and make sure that we are always on our game, and make sure that we are always there to serve the public and give them our best service.
Indeed. Ms. Roll?
I'd like to say good morning to my mom, Garnell Roll, who's probably listening. And just good morning as well to the Department of Inland Revenue and the entire Bahamas.
And by the way, what's your cameraman's name? You have to say a wonderful good morning to him as well.
Anton Francis, and of course we have the rest of the comms team, Sherelle Poitier and John Williams.
Hey, a wonderful good morning and Merry Christmas to each and every one of you out there.